All right, hello. Welcome back to another episode of Paths of Purpose. Today, my guest here is Claude Silver. Claude, it's great to have you here. Thank you so much for coming on.
Thanks, Jason. I'm really excited to talk to you today.
Cool. All right, Claude. Well, would you mind just walking us through your past, your origin story, if you will?
I sure will, yeah. Um, so let's see. I grew up for the first part of my life in New York City. And then when I was 11 going on 12, my family moved to Santa Fe, New Mexico. And so big difference from tall skyscrapers, metropolis, international city, moving to the Southwest where there's adobe houses and you're not in the metropolis. Basically, we were probably a minority, I think, which was really interesting to be in that type of geography and culture, going from again New York City to a place where it was highly populated with Native Americans and Mexican people. So what I loved about moving to Santa Fe, New Mexico, was that it gave me a real appreciation for the outdoors, and I found a lot of confidence within the outdoors of being athletic and being able to use my body in ways that made me feel good. Snowboarding and skiing, of course. The reason I say that is because I was a really poor student and I was dyslexic. I found out I was dyslexic at a young age, about 8 or 9. Not that it meant anything to me because I didn't really understand then, but as I got into junior high and high school, it really started to affect me because I had just a different way of learning and a different way of taking information in, which back in the 80s and early 90s was, I don't think we catered to students as we catered to them today. So learning differences, I think, were looked at as learning disabilities more so than differences. And I think of having dyslexia as a massive superpower
Mm,
now, which is incredible. And the outdoors and tennis and all of those activities really is what gave me confidence because school was really challenging for me.
mm,
Um, I took the SATs 3 times untimed. I took algebra 3 times, and just could not put two and two together like that. Um, but again, I knew I was really good with people. I'm a natural player coach type of person. I I've always believed that people can do it. Whatever it is, the do it, whatever the it is. And so I've always been like that cheerleader. It took me a while to really do that for myself, I'll
mm,
say. It's always been easier to cheerlead for other people and believe in other people. So I would say my path in life for sure has been to understand how to use a mirror and reflect that back onto me with
mm,
self-compassion and self-love and belief in self, which takes a lot of time and therapy, and it takes a tremendous amount of support system, which I'm grateful for. Anyway, one thing led to another, and I went to school when I graduated high school, which I went to university in Florida. I never should have gone. I should have taken a year off or maybe several years off. And so after my sophomore year, I told my parents I needed to leave university, going nowhere fast, bad decisions, bad boys, bad drugs, those types of things. And I found a 93-day wilderness outward bound
mm,
program. And I was in no shape to do that, physical shape at all. But I signed up because I knew my life was meant to go a different path. I knew I wasn't
mm,
supposed to go down into the underbelly of life. 93 days in the outdoors with everyone carrying 80 pounds on their back, and all of us were issued a big government block of cheese every 18 days and a big can of fish. I was the only girl, young woman with 9 young men. We were all 18 to 20 years old, and um, it was intense. It was really intense. In fact, on
mm,
um, my first day in the Colorado Rockies, it was snowing, and I was way behind the rest of the guys. I was really struggling. We were climbing like 1,000 feet. We were already in like 12,000 foot elevation. So it's very difficult to breathe up there. And I just wanted to break my leg. I
mm,
was praying as I was doing that walk, I would break my ankle or break my leg. And the instructor came all the way down are you okay? What's going on? She literally said, I was crying, it's freezing. She said, what's going on in your head? And I said to her, well, I'm singing Nine Inch Nails. Head like a hole, black as your soul. I'd rather die than give you control. And she looked at me and she said, you better get another song in your head. So I share that for two reasons. One, 93 days later, I had another song in my head. This was 1991, so it wasn't like Pharrell's Happy or anything. And that was the first time I actually heard in my soul that only I can change this narrative.
Hmm.
No one else can. I can have anything I want on the wall. I can read self-help books. I can go to therapy. But if Claude cannot change the negative narrative, then no one's going to be able to do that for
Hmm.
me. So I mention that because it's something I use every single day. I teach every single day. And it's really part of my belief system that
Hmm.
we can identify our imposter or identify our limiting beliefs and we won't find evidence for that because it's just false.
Yeah.
Then we find evidence for something much more positive. So
Hmm.
I'll pause there for a second. I've only gotten to age 19, but there's a
Yeah.
lot that happened
Let's
up there.
dig in. Let's dig in. I think it's incredible that you had the self-awareness to see that you needed something to shake you up, right? You said that this was your choice to go on Outward Bound.
It was my choice.
I don't
I,
know anybody who ever like chose to do that.
yeah,
What did you like why what were you hoping to get out of that experience before you signed up?
yeah. What I told my parents was I needed to find the longest wilderness course because I needed to get my ass kicked, quote unquote.
Mm.
So I knew that the path I was going down was going to lead me nowhere. And it
Mm.
was going to lead me to a very dark place. And that I had enough of a pilot light inside of me to know that wasn't the way it was going to go for me,
Wow.
that I was meant for something else. I've always had a really big spiritual side and I
Hmm.
really, it's very personal to me. And so I knew internally that I was supposed to thrive. I was not supposed to merely survive or, be wasted all the
Mm.
time.
Was that something that you were able to realize from one experience that kind of shook you up? Was it just a gradual decline that made you realize that?
Yeah, that's a phenomenal question because you're right. It was a decline. Throughout, adolescence is tough, I think, for anyone. It doesn't matter which gender you are, it doesn't matter which year you grew up in. There's a reckoning, I think, that we do as we hormonally change, as we compare ourselves to others. Now, I'm lucky there was no social media back in those days. It's very different today. But as you still want to get accepted, you still want to be chosen, you still want to be the pretty girl, all of those things, and the smartest or smart at least. And I think a few things compounded on one another,
Hmm.
and my confidence in myself.
Mm.
Well, I still had that pilot light, but that was very secret. That was
Yeah.
just my thing. My confidence in myself and my ability to know how to get from point A to B was just not developed, I'll
Mm.
say. And so I took myself out of school after some bad things happened, not great things happened in college. And I just said to myself, you need to shake this up.
Yeah.
You need to shake this up. You are supposed to be more than this.
Mm.
And it was in Outward Bound. This was a wilderness leadership course. So
Yeah.
there was 10 of us. It was very small. And the purpose was to learn how to be a wilderness leader. And I did that very successfully. And that gave me a lot of confidence when I was able to, lead these 9 guys out of the Grand Canyon with crampons on and ice picks. I mean, that's a big
Yeah.
deal. Or raft down class 5 rapids in the Grand Canyon. No, that's a big deal. That made me feel like I had a purpose.
Yeah.
And I came out of that knowing that I wanted to be a servant leader.
Mm.
And that's what we called it back in those days. I now say empathetic leader or
Yeah.
heart-led leader. But I came out knowing I was a leader,
Mm.
confidence, And I really, really had a heart to help. I wanted to be of service, and that
Mm,
has never left me.
wow. So where along the journey in Outward Bound did that come to you? Where you
Yeah,
wanted to come out of this being that way?
the first 18 days were hell. They were really, really hell. Um, like I said, I wanted to break my ankles. I wanted to break my leg. It was me and 9 guys. And that was just like, how are we going to navigate this? I think they thought for the first while I was going to like get to camp and like boil the water for hot chocolate. And it was like, no. And by the way, I'm not as fast as you. Um, I got Giardia towards the end of that 18 days, which was gross and terrible. And so I came out of that 18 day, every 18 days, we got a resupply. We got to use a payphone and we got snail mail. So it's
Mhm.
1991. And I immediately had to go to the hospital and get hydrated.
Mm,
And then I went to the hotel that we were all staying in for one night. And this is actually a remarkable thing that happened, a devastating thing, but remarkable turn for me. I had just gotten out of the shower and I had the World Series on. It was the Subway Series, the A's and the San Francisco Giants. And I watched the San Francisco earthquake happen
mm,
while watching that baseball game. And I saw people literally crumbling, crashing. The whole bridge crashed. I mean, I saw
mm,
that live on TV. And it was so wild, Jace, because I had been in the outdoors for 18 days with no news, no nothing. And then to come out and to be watching that happen was really, really mind blowing. And I knew that was a very big signal to me that I was going to get back into this course and I was going to get it together
mm,
and I was going to start to show up as my strong self
mm.
and become a leader. I knew it. I knew it,
Wow.
knew it. Yeah.
Wow. So you get out of this program and then what's next for you?
What's next for me is I went back to Santa Fe, New Mexico. I still had some bad habits that I needed to shake off, and I bartended. I really believe you learn so much about human behavior by bartending and waiting tables. I learned so much, and I eventually found schools to go to that worked with the way I learned.
Mm,
Back in those days, they were called like alternative schools. Prescott College was one of them, where that's very focused on spirituality and
mm,
psychology and the outdoors, and that spoke to me. And then I moved to San Francisco, and I found another great college called California Institute of Integral Studies, which is where I finally graduated from when I was 28. And in the meantime, while I was in San Francisco and I came out as a lesbian, which was a great place to come out, I started taking courses around clairvoyancy
mm,
and energy work and chakra healings and chakra clearings. I have no idea what took me there, but I spent 4 years going to the school in Sausalito and really
mm.
learning how to do, past life regressions, whether or not someone believes in it or not. It's okay.
Yeah.
Um, but I really started to learn more about me and what got me into negative patterns and
Mm,
what to do when I felt like sabotaging myself.
yeah.
And by the way, that's a lifelong journey. I mean, I can't say I'm like completely sabotage free. I do my best to not put myself into situations that are going to be harmful to me or anyone in the
Mm,
world.
yeah.
Um, but that's what happened. So San Francisco, I ended up staying in for almost 18 years, and it
Mm,
was a wonderful place for me to get to know myself and grow and develop and find ways in which to put my heart to work, quite
mm,
frankly.
yeah. What about it? What about pursuing these academic programs? Like, what do you think was pulling you towards those?
The Prescott colleges and the California Institute. Well, so my best friend in the world happens to be your mother, and your mom and I went rafting in Wyoming one day, and we sat down after rafting. We had a glass of wine in our hand, and she looked at me and she said, "Just go get the piece of paper." And what she meant was the diploma. that, and I looked up to Gail quite a bit. I still do, and that was enough to send me back to school. But I knew I had to go to a school that spoke to me.
Mm,
I'm not a B, C, D, E. Yeah, I'm not a grade person. That's not what school's about for me. I needed someplace where I could explore all of this, this quite frankly, this holistic person who I am, and really try to understand more about human behavior and our psyche and our shadow and
mm,
spirituality. And so California Institute of Integral Studies is a school that is really based in spiritual, it's rooted in spirituality
yeah.
fundamentally.
Mm,
And that spoke to me because I believe it doesn't matter to me if it's Christ, if it's Buddha, if it's whomever. I believe in powers that are much greater than myself. And that is something that humbles me daily.
yeah. Mm. So would you say that, here, I don't want to put words into your mouth, but it sounds like, from my perspective, it sounds like you went in looking for something and you came out finding something much greater.
Yes, I had no idea what I was going to get out of this incredible school. And I learned, I learned about myself. And through learning about myself, I learned about other humans
Mm,
and the ways in which we work and what we think and what we feel and why we go down certain paths. So my major, if you will, was in psychology and human development. And that was like I say, it's a very like transpersonal, interdependent. It's a way to look at um, the whole human rather than some psychology courses really just focus on the abnormalities, which I don't believe in.
mhm,
So transpersonal, interpersonal psychology, holistic psychology is very much kind of the basis of positive psychology, which
mhm,
is a real interest of mine.
mm. So then, coming out of school, then, what was the first job that you could really put this into practice?
So while I was going to school, I was managing a very small boutique grocery store in the Castro in San Francisco. Remember, this is pre Whole Foods. This is pre Facebook. We're talking 95, 96, 97. And so I was managing this store. And again, I'm good with people. I'm a real natural, like, yes, we can do this. And a repeat customer came in one day and he said, "You surf, right? You snowboard?" And I said, "Yeah, yeah." And he said, "I'm starting an internet.com company and I think you'd be a really great project manager." And I was like, I have no clue what a project manager does. And that was my first foray into digital, into this world of digital and content creation. And away I went. And I drove my little beater Saab down to Palo Alto every day. And I was in a lot of different startups because that was what was going on. It was the
Mm,
startup revolution, the first one.
yeah.
And then 9/11 happened. Many of us got laid off in the Valley in San Francisco, and I co-founded an outdoor adventure surfing company with a girlfriend of mine, and we ran that for a good 5 years before we
Mm,
sold that.
mm. And this was that still in San Francisco?
Yep. Yeah. So
Okay.
I had a really, really killer tan because I wore a 4-3 wetsuit. So it was the neck up and the wrist down, and I was
Yeah.
very tan, and I have the sunspots to show for it. Um, but it was, such a labor of love, and it was we
Mm,
were if we got customers, we made money. If we didn't get customers,
yeah.
we had to go into our savings account.
Mm. Was the timing of that, was it clear when you got laid off that that was a clear next step for you?
No, it wasn't. What happened, I mean, short little story, but what happened was she and I both had gotten laid off from our jobs. And we, like I said, we were together. And so we went down to Mexico. And we were very outdoorsy people, as it already was. And we wanted to rent a kayak. And we went to the shop and they said, "Yeah, you can rent a kayak, but this guy has to go with you." And we were like, huh, we own kayaks. We don't want this guy to go with us. Sure enough, he had to come with us. And as we were in the kayak with this guy, and we were fishing, we said right then and there, we need to start an outdoor adventure company for women
Mm,
so that they don't need to go with guides.
mm,
And that's how that happened. And we came back, and within a weekend, we had, bought the URL. She was a designer, so she could make the content. I wrote the copy, and away we went. And we started teaching surfing. And it
mm,
was a really positive experience for me.
mm,
And it was a lucrative experience for us, which was great. And it really got me into what I love doing, which is I think using my hands to really understand the
mm.
world.
Yeah.
Like you, I'm a Taurus. And so I really feel the world with all of my senses. And I was able to do that player, coach, champion, cheerlead people by
Mm,
pushing people into the water on a surfboard, or teaching them how to, belay when rock climbing, or teaching canyoning
mm,
and mountaineering and all of those things. So
mm.
it was fabulous.
So why'd you stop doing it?
Well, we broke up. That's the reason we really stopped. And we were both going in different directions. And I knew in my bones it was probably time to get a real job again. And San Francisco was booming again at that time. So we sold the company to one of our surf instructors who still has it today. And I went and got a job in this world of advertising and
Hmm.
marketing, and went into creative advertising agencies. By the way, I had no idea what they did. I had no clue, but I knew enough, I think, to show that I was good with people, and I
Hmm.
was probably going to be good with clients, and away I went, and here I still am at a creative advertising
Yeah.
agency.
Wow. It really comes full circle.
Yeah, yeah, really.
How did you land on that as a field to shift into?
I went to a recruitment company, and you went in and you handed them your CV, your resume, and then they placed you,
Yeah.
and that's what happened. And I literally needed a job,
Hmm.
and they placed me at an advertising agency. I had no idea how ads got made. I had no idea how TV got made, a TV advertisement. So it was a wonderful education, and I got to work on, very large accounts, and got, you know, managed a lot of teams. And
Hmm.
one day, so I was an account director, and one day the chief strategic officer of this agency I worked at came up to me, and he said, "You really understand humans, don't you?" And I said, "Well, yeah, I'm passionate about it." And he said, "I think you're a strategist." And he literally plucked me from this role into the strategy department. And my career just blossomed from that.
Mm,
I got another job at another large agency in San Francisco. And within 2 years, they had transferred me to London. And my career really, really boomed there too, working on global accounts and getting away from the American way of doing everything, and
mhm,
understanding the European and global sensibilities and cultures and sensitivities was great for me.
mm. What was that like?
Well, I mean, when you're working in advertising and you're trying to like sell a bottle of a jar of ragu spaghetti sauce to people in Turkey, you have to really understand what the mom, who's that's they're buying for the household, what the mom needs when she's trying to make a very fast, nutritious meal for her kids in Turkey. Or maybe you have to understand the consumer in Russia, or
Hmm.
maybe you have to understand the consumer in Northern Ireland. And so it allowed me to go deep into digging for insights,
Hmm.
and insights are truths, human truths, and try to figure out what the right kind of messaging campaign would be to get that jar of ragu or that toothpaste into that consumer's hands, because it solved a problem for them. And
Mm,
that's the thing with advertising. It's very different today because it's social media led, but we're still trying to evoke emotion with people. And
mm,
whether or not that's on TikTok or whether or not that's a banner ad, you're still trying to get a rise out of someone so that they say, "Wow, that really touched me," or that spoke to me.
mm,
Whoa, that product really knows me. Cool. I'm going to become a loyalist and only buy Crest.
mm. Do you feel like that was a new skill that you were cultivating while you're in that position?
I cultivated the rigor around it.
Hmm.
I really understood. I think I really understood people, but I cultivated the rigor around thinking about what that person in Turkey, Istanbul, needed, and
Mm,
how that could be very different to how a mom in the Midwest of America needed something.
yeah,
Obviously, different cultures, different finances, different hygiene, all of those things. So it gave me a structure which was good for me as a very kind of organic free thinker. It's always good to give me some kind of structure or architecture.
yeah,
And I still draw out of the lines, but it's always good for me to know kind of where the
yeah.
guardrails are.
Mm.
Yeah.
At the same time, did you feel like you were still able to do all the things that you loved about the the surfing company in this position?
Yeah, I mean, I managed a lot of teams and I mentored people. And I think pushing people into the water on surfboards and telling them to paddle, 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 push up, stand up is just another way to encourage someone to move out of their comfort zone. And then as a mentor and a manager, that's something I'm always trying to do. I want to champion people and somehow give them that message that you are capable of
Yeah.
so much.
Mm,
You're capable of, it's not even so much more. You are capable of so much.
yeah.
And if I can be a passenger with them on that journey, it's the biggest honor for me.
Mm, mm. So would you say that that is like would that be the common thread then
Yes,
between your experiences?
1000%, which is being a passenger with people and learning, spending a lot of time learning about boundaries
Yeah.
because I can't be helpful to you if I'm going to take on your stuff.
Mm,
I can't, but I can be really helpful for you if I ride shotgun next to you.
yeah. All right. So continuing with your path then. So what was after London?
I met Gary Vaynerchuk. And again, I have to thank your mom for that. Gail Tifford, who introduced me to Gary when I was living in London. And she said, basically, you guys need to meet. You're two sides of the same coin. And we met.
Mm,
And one thing led to another. And the job that Gary had for me was based in New York. And I moved to New York in late April of 2014. I met my now partner also around that time, and I've been at Vayner for 10 years, and I've been in New York for 10 years.
wow. Mm. How has your how has your role at Vayner shifted over your in your time being there?
Yeah, the company was 200 people when I joined. It's 2,000 now.
Wow.
I joined as a an SVP of account strategy, so putting all of those things together that I had done in many different jobs, and I actually ran our Unilever account, and we didn't have HR. We just had Gary and his brother. And every now and then, Gary and his brother would say to me, "Hey, would you go to the office in San Francisco? Would you go check out the office in LA?" And I would say, "Yeah, I'd love to do that. But my client is just across the Hudson River here in New Jersey." And Gary said to me one day, "Just go do that thing that you do." And when he said that, it dawned on me that, oh my gosh, I have a boss now. I have an ally that sees so much more beyond how I just pay my bills.
Mm,
And one thing led to another. I was doing a lot of interviewing at the company for people, and I did terminations. I did all kinds of stuff. And I went to Gary one day and I said, "Thank you so much. This is a great opportunity. I love it here. I love the culture. You're the best, but I don't want to do advertising anymore." And he said, "What do you want to do?" And I said, "I only care about the human being. I only care about the heartbeat here." And that's how we got to Heart 6, 7, 8 months later. And we
mm.
created this role, the chief
Wow.
heart officer.
So how many years into you being there was this that you started being the chief heart?
like
officer.
16, yeah, 16 months, not even a
Wow.
year.
Mm,
Yeah. And I just knew, I knew what it was. It felt, it's a great title, but beyond the title, it means that I am here to be in service
mm,
and be in partnership with 2,000 people. I'm here to facilitate their growth
mm,
in whichever way I can do that. And sometimes that means by moving them into a different position or a different geography. Sometimes that means helping them find their voice to speak to their manager. Sometimes that means terminating someone. But there's always going to be growth attached to any of those things. And also the way I come about life is really through an optimistic point of view, which is
mm.
we are all capable of many, 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 many different things, and it might not be here.
Wow. That's really inspiring to hear an organization value that and to put someone in a position to be able to do that, because you hear of so many companies that are just like, oh, if it's not here, then it doesn't matter.
Yeah, there's a lot of companies out there that say they're people first, and that's great. But this is a company that really has put a position together. I sit right next to Gary, and he believes in kindness and compassion and empathy and being the bigger person and emotional intelligence and all of the things I believe in. And
Yeah.
so he walks the walk, and I think there's a lot of companies out there that wish they did, but for whatever reason they still talk the talk. And I'm very lucky to work for him. It's an
Mm,
independent agency, so there's no one to report to other than him.
yeah.
And he's got a real gift.
Mm, which is,
His gift is like caring about people. His gift is understanding that everyone has got different desires. And some people go to work and do their 9 to 5, and then they want to get home and join their son's soccer practice. And some people want to work and they want to become the richest person in the world. And some people, want to work and go to school. So I think he has a real appetite for the different dimensionalities of employees and humans, quite
mm,
frankly. And
mm,
I like being with a person like that. I learn something every day from him
wow.
and from being here.
How does that play out? Um, how does how would you say that gift comes into being like with at the company? Like how does that translate into what the what it's like to work there?
There's enormous amounts of autonomy here, enormous amounts of possibility, entrepreneurship. Gary is a disruptor in many ways. We know he's an entrepreneur. He can see around the corner in many ways because he studies consumers so closely.
Hmm.
And so I think what that gives us all space
Mm,
to move and to find right, whatever right is, together. I also think that he and I both believe that there is no one smart person. There's no one smartest person in the room. It's the culmination, it's the sum of the parts. The room is what is the smartest.
mm,
And so allowing people, empowering people to have voice, even the introverts,
mm,
and to know that you don't have to be on the creative department to come up with a killer idea. You
yeah.
can come up with a killer idea. So there's a lot of room, and there's a lot of opportunity to try things and fail and get back up.
Yeah.
And I think that's really the secret, which is growth is only going to come if you continuously try and try and try again and try again. So it's almost like going back to my Outward Bound days. Yeah, that first day was terrible. The 15th day was terrible. But the 20th day got better, and the 30th day got even better, and the 45th day got better because I kept on learning from mistakes. I kept on learning from what the outdoors, the elements was telling me. And I had an enormous amount of breathing room to try things out.
Mm,
I work very well. Like I said, I do need some structure, but I work really well with just blue skies with an opening. And I think most people do. We want to be expansive. That's, I think, part of the human condition.
Yeah. Mm. How has it, how did you, how have you carried the responsibility of being in your position as the company has grown in size from 200 to 2000?
Yeah. I'll tell you what, I don't know how our employees are feeling in Bangkok. And I don't know how our new employees are feeling in India. And I'm not in all of those places. And that is the one thing I can say when I think of my responsibility. I want to ensure that everyone is having a consistent experience of Vayner, of what we promise you, of what we say our values are and our vision is.
Mm,
And so what keeps me up at night is actually I can't get to Bangkok and I can't get to Singapore every day. I can't get to Los Angeles every day. So how do I ensure that all of those employees, all of those human beings are are feeling what it is that is so important to us?
mm,
And I have to rely on other people to tell me. And I have
yeah.
to rely on what I call culture champions,
Mm,
people that I believe have a very similar DNA. They have a heart to help. They will take the extra 15 minutes, an hour to work with someone on a project and work with someone if they're having a hard day. And that's how I get a lot of my information. So my responsibility is enormous, and I really try to not boil the ocean every day because I can't. I can really only do what's in front of me.
yeah.
And I want to do what's in front of me to the best of my ability.
Mm. How did you, how did you learn that?
I think I learned that. I mean, I think I learned that from my parents, and I think from my nana, who was an amazing woman who
Mm,
really emotionally raised me in many, many ways. Most generous person I've ever known in my life. But I've also learned that from Gary. And so Gary will say, just focus on the 1%. What do you need to do right now? Just
yeah.
focus on it and, put your intention into that.
Mm,
Really, do the best you can right there. And it's interesting because that phrase, do the best you can, is something 10 years in I'm just getting used to.
yeah.
I always thought there's always more I can do. There's always more I can do. There's always more. And sometimes that's not true. Sometimes I've done the best I can, and it's someone else's job to then take the ball down the field, or it's time to just put a full stop on that issue and move on to other issues.
Yeah. Well, it sounds like that is a prime example of how that autonomy is trickling down from like going from Gary to you to whatever culture champions. Is that the word you used?
Yeah, culture champions
Yeah.
and just, everyone here, because I think making people feel good and allowing people and empowering people to have voices, everyone's responsibility. It's not mine.
Mm,
I'm not just the only person that should carry the flag, or Gary should carry. Everyone should carry the flag. I don't. Yes, I have a great title and my role is fantastic, and I get to do what is I think my life's work. I really, really do. And it's not just me. So it trickles to everyone. And where it isn't trickling, I spend more time with that person.
mm,
Where
yeah.
it isn't quite connecting, let's figure out what's not connecting. Are they cynical? They had terrible bosses their entire life, and so they don't believe it's actually good here. Have they had CEOs that would yell and scream? Well, we don't have that here.
Yeah. Mm,
So a lot of, it's a lot of unlearning that has to happen here because we're really different. And he's an incredibly different boss,
hmm
incredibly different CEO and founder. And there's so many gifts, I think. If one takes Gary literally and doesn't try to figure out what's behind the scenes in there, you can learn a lot. You can
mm,
really take the gifts.
yeah. Mm. How do you how do you empower others in terms of if people are stuck? How can you empower them to be autonomous?
Well, we figure out what's what's the cement. Why are they stuck? Most of the time, it's because of what they're telling themselves in here.
Mm,
most of the time, it might be because a manager didn't give them feedback and or honest feedback. Most of the time it's just our own limitations that we didn't feel like we could speak up in that moment or say, hey, that doesn't sound right, that's not me.
Hmm.
Or, hey, I'd really like to get a raise here, what do I need to do? So figuring out what that showstopper is for people, just like my Outward Bound instructor said to me that day, like, what is going on in your head? I basically say the same thing. And then you work with that person on, like, how do you know if that's true or not? Really? You're a
Yeah.
failure? Show me the ways, please tell me. Show me the evidence.
Mm.
And I would say, 99% of the time, there is no evidence for this. This is fictitious.
Yeah.
This is a lie. And so if we can identify that, then let's figure out what is the truth. What is
Mm.
your that you are accountable to yourself every single day. That
Wow.
that you are the CEO of your life, whatever it is. And then we try to find the evidence for that, which you can find.
Mm.
And then I send them out the door on their way. That's what I do. But a lot of what I do is a lot of it is just listening. I collect data information all day and then I look for patterns. And, as I said in the beginning, like, dyslexia has been a superpower for me because I have had to learn the world in a different way
Mm.
through observation and through listening and through listening here and trying to figure out, like, what am I saying? Because we're not all that different. We have very different lived experiences. You and I have very different lived experiences, but we relatively have the same kind of emotions.
Mm.
There's not very many different states we're going to be in.
Yeah.
Joy is joy is joy is joy. It may come to us in different ways because of the experiences. And so it's like, again, it's kind of just minimizing all the drama. Like, what is
Mm.
the one thing that is preventing you from stepping into being your biggest self right now?
Yeah. Yeah. It's like cutting through all the noise directly to the
Yeah,
point.
it's exactly right. It's exactly right because you just need someone who will sit there and listen to you. If
Mm.
you're not able to ask yourself that question, which is very difficult to ask
Yeah.
yourself,
Yeah.
you know,
Mm. After doing this for almost 10 years now, how have you changed as someone who takes on that role as asking people those questions and being there for somebody?
well, I've always been this person, like always, 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 even in high school. I've probably gotten better at asking questions. I've probably gotten better at my boundaries and
Mm.
leaving things here or neutralizing whatever it is and just not taking it on because I just can't.
Yeah.
Once we had kids, I've become much better at not being a workaholic.
Mm.
And the reason I say workaholic is because I love this world. I love
Yeah.
this world of discovery. And
Mm.
so it's really a hobby for me in many, many ways. But I've learned to find some other hobbies that aren't going to suck me into a computer all day long.
Yeah. Wow. How how yeah, that brings me to my next question then of like how do you manage leaving work at work? Especially especially if it's you're working with people that you care about so much and you're having conversations that are so personal sometimes.
Yeah. So I've that's something I've had to really, I would say, master in this role. And this is what I can tell you. When I'm talking or listening to someone, it's not about me and I don't have to have all the answers. So by letting myself and my ego know, you can move to the back right now.
Hmm.
This isn't about you, Claude. You don't have to fix anything. What you promise to do is be a passenger with someone, is ride with them. And then once that meeting is over, if it's been really, really heavy, I have my own way of doing my own energetic separations, which I
Yeah.
learned years and years ago in San Francisco. But ultimately, when the day is done, the day is done. I have other priorities. I have a family. And
Mm.
that's what I do. I go home with my family.
Yeah.
And And that's really awesome. So it's very rare that I'll take something home. And if I do, I know that I need to address it the next day.
Wow. That's so that's so wise.
Well, it's taken me a long time to get there, but yeah,
Yeah.
thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Wow.
Yeah. It's not mine to figure. I don't have to have all of the answers. And I
Yeah.
think that what I didn't, when I was much younger and going to therapy, I thought I would find that therapist that told me what to do. Well, no one tells me what to do,
Yeah.
how to fix something. They just walk through the why. And it's up to us individually to figure out the how.
Mm. Yeah. 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 Cool.
Deep.
In terms of having a family and also having a job that you're so passionate about, how or what advice would you have for somebody who's like who's trying to have like a fulfilling life with their family and also provide for their family with work that's meaningful and purposeful?
Yeah. Boundaries are really difficult. And so I think the answer is I think those of us that have learned the art of boundaries need to really teach and empower others to use their voice fundamentally and
Mm.
say, I need to leave at 5:30 every day because this is what I do after work. I will get online at 8 p.m. and see if there's anything waiting for me. I mean, we are in we partnership with clients. So I mean, we do have to check our work, check in every now and then. But basically, like it's life work. It's life work. It's not work life balance.
Mm.
And we got that all wrong. And that was a construct that was built in the industrial age,
Mm.
where it was 8 hours of sleep, 8 hours of work, 8 hours of play. And that's how a day was broken up.
Yeah.
That's how we got like 9 to 5. And I, life is so different now coming out of the pandemic. People that are, Gen Zs like yourself or millennials, like it's a very different world than it was when I was that 30-year-old.
Yeah.
It's a very different working world, and I'm glad it is. But I will say it's one that we're all trying to figure out right now.
Yeah.
So to answer the question again, I want to empower people to say, like, it's really important that I go to my therapy appointment every Friday at
Mm.
4. And I
Yeah.
want to help them do that.
Yeah.
I want to help them do that. I certainly don't want to create any kind of entitlement or, um, um, just unbalance in the system. But like, life is very important, and
Yeah.
how we choose to live our life is important. And
Mm.
I'm not one to dictate how anyone should live their life, but I certainly want to help them figure it out if they want my help.
Yeah. Wow. Yeah, that part about boundaries is super powerful of like yes, the importance of like being able to set them, but also teaching others how to do that.
Yeah. Teaching others. And it is, I will say, you can lead a horse to water, as we know, but a person then has to actually do it.
Yeah.
You can't make the horse drink. That person must put that into practice. It's
Yeah.
not theory. It's not theory. And I think that's, going back to a lot of what I do here. There's nothing philosophical necessarily. I'm talking about real life stuff,
Yeah.
which is like, wow, you woke up 3 hours before you even turned on your computer and you had a really rough morning. And that's going to affect you today.
Yeah.
So let's talk about that, or let someone know about that, because you're not abnormal. We all have those days.
Yeah. Mm.
So, how do we create? I think the real question beyond empowerment is like, how are we creating safe spaces in the workplace where people feel like they can show up authentically and they
Yeah.
can say, I got therapy every Friday at 4, or, today's not a great day and I'm going to have to go off camera, whatever it is. Or today I'm feeling like the king of the world. So like, pile it on me.
Yeah.
We want to create these places where people feel brave and like
Mm.
they belong together, because as you well know, like we're supposed to belong with one another. We are supposed to be in community. And that's been since the dawn of time.
Yeah. Yeah. Let's see. Who inspires you?
Well, my Nana, she's no longer alive, but she really inspired me. She, like I say, we would, I'd take her into Trader Joe's or something, and she would collect her credit card from the cashier, and she'd look at the cashier's name, and it would say Jason, and she'd say, Jason, and you'd say, would you do me a favor and have a peaceful day? And she'd just walk right out of that Trader Joe's
Hmm.
and really leave you feeling something pretty
Wow.
cool. So she was my biggest inspiration, I would say, for sure. And I think about her all the time. My kids inspire me all the time. I mean, 3 and 5.5 years old, just their sense of wonder and watching them, because you were 3 and 5 before. I was 3 and 5, but I wasn't watching myself. I was living. Now I'm getting to see these little creatures develop and ask questions,
Hmm.
and that inspires me on a daily basis. People that do good in the world, that want to leave this world better than they found it, they inspire me. So whomever those people are, I'm a fan.
All right. I think that's a good place to end. Thank you so much for coming on. And
Thank
it
you.
was really great to hear about your journey and also the work that you're doing.
Thanks, Jason. I really appreciate you.
All right.